Is Kliff Kingsbury doing it again? Let's talk about it coming up here on Four Verts. I'm Harrison Graham. Welcome into Four Verts. Is Kliff cliffing because the calendar has turned November and all of a sudden a Kliff Kingsbury offense doesn't look like it did in September and October? Where have we seen this before? Oh, wait. Everywhere Kliff Kingsbury has literally ever been. Will it be different this time? Is this just who he is? We're going to talk about it. Take a trip down memory lane and kind of figure out if this is what's going to happen to the Washington Commanders moving forward. But before we do all that, are you a subscriber to this channel? Have you hit that subscribe button? If you have, type yes in the comments below. If you have not, type no. But I would just encourage you to subscribe to the channel. And if you're a new subscriber today, if you decide today is the day, let me know. Yes, today is the day I decided to subscribe to Four Verts, because we're publishing daily NFL and college football content here on this channel. So support us. We're going to bring you coverage every single day. All right, is Kliff cliffing? Because historically, Kliff Kingsbury's offenses start off well. Arizona, Texas Tech. Now, to be fair, in college, his offenses typically were still good throughout the season, especially when he had some guy named Patrick Mahomes. But from a win-loss standpoint, which we'll get to later, his teams definitely would fall off in the second half of seasons. But just focusing on the offense and just focusing in the NFL, you look at his EPA when he was with Arizona for 4 seasons, expected points added. In September and October, 0.05, pretty good, above average. 0 is just kind of flat, right? Negative 0.05 in November and December. And if you just look at a bunch of numbers, win-loss, stats, or yards, third down conversion, yards per play, all this stuff, it is much better early in seasons for Kliff than it is later in seasons. And typically turning from October to November is about that sweet spot when things start to change. And what does that tell me? That tells me that teams adjust to what he's doing, and he does not counter adjust that well. Doesn't mean he's not capable. Doesn't mean it's going to for sure happen again here in Washington, but it's something we saw consistently during his time with the Arizona Cardinals. You're already seeing a small glimpse of it right now. September and October, this looked like one of, if not the best offenses in the NFL. We were reigning Jayden Daniels as not only running away with the Rookie of the Year award, but kind of a dark horse MVP candidate. We'll get to him in a second, but I mean, just small sample size. September, October, almost 30 points per game, almost 400 yards per game. November, 24 points per game. One of those games, they kind of had some weird stuff happen. It was the Pittsburgh game. I think they had a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown. Offensively, they were not very good, and the yards kind of points that out. Over 100 more yards per game in the first 2 months than we've seen in the last 3 games in November. Now, there can be a lot of reasons for that. Jayden Daniels is a little bit nicked up. They've played better defenses. Eagles, Steelers, even the Giants, one of the better defenses they've played compared to, like, Carolina, for example. They played the Bears recently, a pretty good defense. So, I'm not here to declare the Commanders' season over or anything like that, although I do think they've come back to earth. I do think they were playing ahead of their skis a little bit, considering the roster, considering they do have a rookie quarterback. And speaking of which, he has cooled off. There's no doubt about it. Like, I don't think we could just pin the last couple of games of struggles offensively on Kliff. I mean, Jayden Daniels is skipping balls downfield last night. Seems like that rib issue is still bugging him. They were wrapping him on the sidelines last night. He's not running as much. I don't think teams are letting him run as much. Again, that does get back to scheme. How do you counter? How do you find ways to get Jayden Daniels back on the perimeter and useful as a runner? Because as a passer, his numbers have, not to use a pun, kind of fallen off a cliff here. 10% decrease in accuracy, less explosive overall, not finding the end zone as often. As, hey, let's relax. He's a rookie quarterback. He's been dinged up. I'm not acting like Jayden Daniels isn't having a really good season and isn't the favorite to win Rookie of the Year. He absolutely is. But I do think a couple things. One, we got to be careful when we throw these guys very, very early on in their career. And two, we got to keep an eye on Kliff Kingsbury, because historically, this is kind of what he does. This is kind of what he does. You want more evidence? How about this? As a head coach with Arizona and Texas Tech, through the first 7 games on his schedules, they are, I got those records in front of me. Let me just find it real quick. 45, 24, and 1. So first 7 games of the year at Texas Tech and the Arizona Cardinals, 45, 24, and 1. Really damn good. Games 8 and beyond after the first 7 games of the year, whether it's college or NFL, 17 and 52. You're for every game you win, you lose 3. I mean, that is really, really poor. Now, I know he's just the offensive coordinator here in Washington, but you're already seeing it. They're 1-2 in the month of November after the first 7 games of the season. So, it's one of these situations where I'm not trying to pick on Kliff. I like Kliff. I think it was a good hire. I think as an offense coordinator, he's excellent. But it's up to him to change the narrative. It's up to him to counter, because if not, this is all people like me and others are going to say, like, oh yeah, your initial plans, your initial schemes, they work. But when defenses get film, when they catch up to what you're doing, they adjust and you don't. Because that's kind of what the numbers tell us throughout his coaching career. And what I give credit for Kliff for is over time and different quarterbacks to play with, he's adapted his schemes like over different seasons. But again, the same things happen. First couple months of the year, they're humming. After that, not so much. So can he turn this around? Can this change? Because listen, before Thursday Night Football last night, even after that game against Pittsburgh, lost by 1 point. It's like, Steelers, it's a tough game. People are saying he could be a head coach again. And I still think that's a possibility. But if it continues to go down this path and this offense doesn't look nearly the same down the stretch, that's going to give teams pause, because they're going to say, Kliff, it happened again. You didn't finish the season even close to the way you started it. So it's up to Kingsbury to kind of change the narrative around him, because that is the narrative. The narrative is that once it gets cold, once the games get tougher and more important, his offenses aren't as effective. That's the numbers, that's the eye test, that's reality. Now, can he go out there and throw the football and hit somebody in the chest? It's not like Jayden Daniels didn't have opportunities last night, but it's with different quarterbacks we've seen it. It was true with Kyler, and by the way, that thing got ugly. There were reports that Kyler and Kliff, barely would even talk during the week because they just did not like each other. So we'll see where this goes. I still think all in all, he's done a good job with Jayden Daniels, with this Washington Commanders offense, but let's see where it goes from here. I will say this. They've got some very good opportunities moving forward. For one, they have 10 days off until their next game, which is a good sign. And then they face the Dallas Cowboys, who are a bad football team and a bad defense. So that should be a game they get back on track. That game's at home. Then they play the Tennessee Titans, who are scrappy defensively, but still a team they should be able to handle. Then they get the bye week. Then they go to New Orleans, another manageable game, before they face Philly again. Atlanta, both those games at home, and then at Dallas to finish. So it's not like they got murderer's row here. Obviously, at Philly or Philly at home and Atlanta at home later in the season is going to be tough. But other than that, those are all non-playoff teams. Dallas twice, Tennessee, at New Orleans. I mean, even if you just split those, that gets you to 9 wins. If you find one other win, you're up to 10, and you're probably a playoff team from a Washington team standpoint. But for Kliff himself, can he get this offense to being more explosive again? I think they're at their best when they commit and stay with the run game. I thought they got a little away from that last night when Brian Robinson was running the ball well. Now, it's not Kliff's fault that Dan Quinn decides to go for a 4th and 2 down 12-10 midway through the fourth quarter. Don't get it, and then that game gets away from him. But it just felt like that offense was never in sync last night. He's calling wide receiver screens down multiple scores in the final couple of minutes. It's like, if you're actually still trying to get back into this game, you're going to have to throw the ball vertically, not horizontally. It was just bizarre. But we've seen this in Arizona. You're seeing early signs it could be happening here. Is Kliff Kingsbury doing it again? For Commanders fans' sakes, I hope that's not the case. All right, be sure to subscribe on your way out. Remember, once we cross 5,000 subscribers, we're going to be able to do some live streams here on this show. So make sure you guys do that. My name is Harrison Graham. Enjoy your football weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.